Culture profoundly shapes the experience and expression of grief, providing a framework for mourning that varies widely across societies. These cultural practices help individuals navigate the emotional landscape of loss, offering structure and meaning during difficult times. In Hindu culture, for instance, the mourning process involves a series of rituals intended to ensure the peaceful transition of the soul to the afterlife. The cremation ceremony, known as antiesti, is typically performed soon after death, followed by a mourning period lasting 13 days. During this time, family members perform rituals such as the Shraddha ceremony to honor the deceased. Family members may shave their heads as a sign of mourning, and it is common to refrain from participating in celebrations or wearing bright colors during the mourning period. In Mexican culture, Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, is a vibrant celebration honoring deceased loved ones. Families create altars or ofrendas decorated with photographs, marigolds, and the favorite foods and beverages of the deceased, reflecting a belief in the continued presence and influence of the dead in the lives of the living. Rather than somber mourning, this celebration is marked by joy and festivity, symbolizing the belief that death is a natural part of the life cycle and an opportunity to remember and celebrate the lives of those who have passed. Similarly, in Japan, the Otsuya, wake, and Soshiki, funeral, are key components of the grieving process. The wake, typically held the night before the funeral, allows family and friends to gather, pay their respects, and share memories. The body is cremated after the funeral ceremony, and ashes are interred in a family grave. Japanese culture tends to emphasize stoicism and respect, with mourning often being a more private affair. However, the communal aspect of the wake allows for shared expressions of grief and support. The context of the death, such as the age of the deceased, the nature of the death, and the relationship to the bereaved, also affects how grief is experienced and expressed across cultures. In many African societies, the death of a young person is regarded with profound sorrow. In Ghana, elaborate funerals are common, with extended community involvement. Mourners may dress in specific colors. Red and black symbolize grief to signify their sorrow. Funerals can be large, public events with music, dancing, and communal gatherings reflecting the belief in celebrating the life of the deceased and providing communal support to the bereaved family. In Tibetan Buddhism, sudden deaths may prompt specific rituals to assist the soul's journey to the afterlife. Monks may perform phowa, a ritual intended to guide the consciousness of the deceased to a favorable rebirth. There is a focus on achieving a peaceful state of mind for both the deceased and the bereaved, with meditation and chanting playing crucial roles in the grieving process. In Jewish tradition, there is a structured approach to mourning, particularly following a prolonged illness. Shiva, a 7-day period of mourning, begins immediately after the funeral, during which family members gather at the home of the deceased to pray and receive visitors. Mourners traditionally sit on low stools or the floor, cover mirrors, and refrain from certain activities to focus on their grief and memories of the deceased. This period is followed by less intensive mourning stages, such as Shaloshim, the first 30 days, and for some, a year of mourning. In Western societies, suicide can carry stigma, complicating the grieving process. However, there is a growing movement towards open discussions and support groups, such as Survivors of Suicide Loss, SOSL, which provide a space for individuals to share their experiences and emotions. These groups help normalize the grief response, allowing individuals to process their feelings without judgment and offering communal support and understanding. Cultural beliefs significantly influence whether expressions of grief are public or private. For instance, in Italian culture, public displays of mourning, such as loud wailing and dramatic expressions of sorrow, are common during funerals, reflecting a cultural acceptance of outward emotional expression. In contrast, British culture often favours a more reserved approach, with stoicism and restraint seen as dignified ways to handle loss. Understanding the cultural context of grief provides valuable insights into how individuals and communities cope with loss. By recognizing and respecting these cultural differences, we can offer more empathetic and effective support to those who are grieving. Cultural practices not only honor the deceased, but also help the living find meaning and healing in the face of loss.